Today in class we talked about solving equations when there are parentheses that are involved, where you can't do what is inside of the parentheses because it's asking you to combine variables with constant numbers, and we know that we can't add x's and numbers together. You can only add x's with other x's. So we talked about the distributive property to pass out that number on the outside and distribute it through the whole set of parentheses, and then you can get rid of those parentheses. So let's do a couple of example problems. In class today, we did numbers 1 through 5. So I'm just going to pick up with number 6. So if you're with me on your homework, number 6 says 7w minus 6 equals 3 parentheses w plus 6. Okay, I'm trying to solve an equation, so we always draw a line through our equal sign, because if I start doing one thing to one side to get rid of stuff, I need to make sure I do it on the other to keep it balanced. Orders of operation tells us we have to do what's inside parentheses first, but since I cannot combine this w and 6 together, I will pass this 3 out to everything inside of there to get rid of those parentheses. Remember, since there's nothing in between here, if I could add a w and a 6 together, I would then multiply it by 3. So when I pass this 3 out to everything, I'm going to multiply it to everything. There's no parentheses over here, so I'm just going to bring my problem down so that way it looks the same as it does. And then here I'm going to say 3 times w is 3w. My plus sign comes down, and 3 times 6 is 18. Now, I have variables and numbers on each side. It doesn't matter where I start, but I need to get all the w's on one side and all the numbers on the other. I personally like to start with the smallest variable. So between 7w and 3w, 3w is smaller. If I want to take away or get rid of 3w, I subtract 3w. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 7w minus 3w is 4w. My minus 6 just comes down. 3w minus 3w went away like we wanted it to, and my 18 comes down. I want to get this w by itself, so I have to get rid of a 4 and a minus 6. That 4 is attached to the w, so I'm going to leave that alone for a second and start working on my layers on the outside. So I'm going to get rid of a minus 6 first. To get rid of a minus 6, I plus 6. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 4w is equal to 18 plus 6 is 24. Divide both sides by 4, because 4w means 4 times w. To undo multiplication, I divide. 4w divided by 4 gives me 1w. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Do not forget to go back and double check and make sure that that is correct. So everywhere there is a w, I'm putting a 6 inside of parentheses. And then you plug that into your calculator to make sure it gives you a true statement. Number 7. Number 7 said 4 parentheses k minus 6 equals 6 parentheses k plus 2. I have parentheses on both sides of my equation, so I'm going to have to use the distributive property on both ends. So 4 passes out to 4k. Bring my minus sign down. 4 times 6 is 24, is equal to, pass my 6 out, and I get 6k. Bring my plus sign down, and I get 6 times 2 is 12. Draw my line through my equal sign. I want to get rid of my smaller variable first, so I will subtract away 4k. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 4k minus 4k goes away, so I have a negative 24 on this side. 6k minus 4k is 2k plus 12. Remember, the k's do not subtract. It's like I had 6 k's, and I took 4 of them away. I'm still left with 2 k's. Okay? So now that I want to get this k by itself, I need to get rid of the 2, and I need to get rid of the 12. That 12 is extra baggage just on there, so it's a little bit easier to get rid of. We're subtracting it away first. Negative 24 minus 12 becomes a negative 36, is equal to 2k. My 12s have went away. 2k means 2 times k, so to undo multiplication, I divide. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. Negative 36 divided by 2 is equal to negative 18. 2k divided by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm just left with 1k. My final answer is negative 18. Plug it in to check your answer. Number 8. I have 3 parentheses x minus 0.8 or 8/10 is equal to 4x plus 4. Have to get rid of these parentheses first. Since I can't do what's on the inside, I'm going to distribute what's on the outside to cancel them out. 3 times x is 3x minus 3 times 0.8. I brought that minus sign down, or you could do 3 times negative 8, whichever way you like, is 2.4. So 3x minus 2.4 is equal to 4x plus 4. I have a 3x and I have a 4x. The 3x is smaller, so that's the one I like to get rid of first. So I'm going to take away 3x. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 3x minus 3x goes away. Negative 2.4 is equal to 4x minus 3x is just 1 plus 4. I want to get this x alone, so I need to get rid of this 4. If it's a plus 4, to get rid of it, I subtract 4. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Okay? So negative 2.4 minus 4 is negative 6.4 is equal to x. That is my final answer. I'm not going to take the time to plug it in myself right now for the video, but you need to make sure that you take this 6.4 and plug it in everywhere you see an x. Inside of parentheses, especially since it's negative, make sure it stays inside of parentheses. Let me go ahead and do this one because since it is important. It should be 3 parentheses and then inside parentheses, negative 6.4 minus 0.8 equals 4 parentheses negative 6.4 plus 4. Double check to make sure that's true. Don't just write that check mark there. Plug it into your calculator and make sure it's a true statement. Okay? Negative numbers especially need to go inside of those parentheses. Number 9. Hey, just so I know that you're paying attention to this video, drop a comment in the bottom and I'll give you 5 bonus points when we take this quiz. So just say, hey Coach K, or something like that in those comments, and it's a little bonus for you just for watching this video. Number 9 says 5/9 g plus 18 equals 1/6 g plus 3. I know all of you are freaking out right now just because there's fractions in this problem. You do it the same exact way. Your calculator will take care of those big scary fractions for you, so don't worry about them. Treat it just the same. Okay? I've got to get rid of these parentheses first, so I'm going to pass this 5/9 out. 5/9 times g is just 5/9 g. Bring down your plus sign. 5/9 times 18. You can do it longhand or you can put it into your calculator. 5/9 times 18 is just equal to 10. Equals 1/6 g plus 3. My parentheses are gone. Now I need to get rid of my g's. 1/6 g is smaller than 5/9 g, so that's the one I'm going to get rid of first. If I have 1/6 g, to get rid of it, I subtract it. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. We drop that equal line through my equal sign, so that way I make sure I'm balanced. 5/9 minus 1/6, you don't have a common denominator, so you can take the long way, or you can just put it in your calculator. 5/9 minus 1/6 is 7/18g. My plus 10 comes down. My 1/6 g's cancel out, so it's just equal to 3. I want to get this g by itself, so I need to get rid of the 7/18, and I need to get rid of the plus 10. I'm going to get rid of the plus 10 first, because that 7/18 is attached there to my g. So I'm going to subtract away 10. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 7/18g is equal to negative 7. Divide both sides by 7/18. You can do that right there in your calculator. And G will equal negative 18. If you are doing it by hand, remember we can't divide by fractions. Instead, we multiply by its reciprocal. So you could cancel out the 7/18 by multiplying by 18/7. Choice is yours. I usually divide by the fraction just because that keeps our properties of equality the same, since this is technically 7/18 times G. Okay? Go back and plug that negative 18 in. Number 10. 4 parentheses C plus 12 equals 2C plus 18. Getting rid of those parentheses, I distribute that 4 out. 4C plus 4 times 12 is 48 equals 2C plus 18. Draw my line through my equal sign. I'm going to subtract the 2C from both sides to get rid of my smaller variable. 4C minus 2C is 2C plus 48 equals 2C minus 2C goes away, so I'm just left with 18. I want to get this C by itself, so I'm going to get rid of a 48 and a 2. I'm going to get rid of this plus 48 first because that 2 and that C are attached, so I'm going to try to get rid of everything else first. 2C comes down, 48 minus 48 goes away. Now 18 minus 48 is equal to negative 30. Okay. 2C means 2 times C, so to undo multiplication, I divide. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 2C divided by 2 is equal to 1C, so we just list that as C. Negative 30 divided by 2 is a negative 15. Make sure you go back and plug that negative 15 in and check your answer. Show me the work where you checked your answer or you will lose points. Moving on to number 11. Number 11 says 7 parentheses D minus 2 equals 5 parentheses D plus 2. I have parentheses on both sides, so I'm going to have to use the distributive property on both ends before I get started. Pass this 7 out, it becomes 7D minus 7 times 2 is 14 equals, pass this 5 out, becomes 5D. Bring down my plus sign, 5 times 2 is 10. Now I'm going to draw that line through my equal sign. I've got to get all the letters on one side and the numbers on the other. So I'm going to move my variables first. I have a 7D and a 5D. Coach K prefers to get rid of the small variable first, so I'm going to subtract away a 5D. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 7D minus 5D is 2D minus 14 equals 5D minus 5D goes away, so I just have a positive 10. 2D minus 14. Want to get this D by itself, so I'm going to add 14 to get rid of it. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 2D is equal to 24. When I divide both sides by 2 to get that D by itself, 2D divided by 2 is just 1D. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So D is equal to 12. Make sure you go back and plug that D in everywhere there's a D in the problem and make sure that it's a true statement. Number 12. Number 12 says 5P minus 17 equals 2 parentheses 2P minus 7. 5P minus 17, I don't have to do anything on that side to start, but I need to distribute this 2 out to make sure I get rid of those parentheses. So this side is going to remain 5P minus 17 equals 2 times 2P is 4P. Bring down my minus sign, and 2 times 7 is 14. Draw a line through my equal sign. I'm going to get rid of my smaller variable first, so I'm going to subtract away a 4P. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 5P minus 4p is 1p, or I can write that as just p. My negative 17 comes down, equals 4p minus 4p goes away, leaving me with a negative 17. So now I'm just going to add a 17. I'm sorry, I apologize. Leaving me with a negative 14. To get rid of this negative 17, I add 17 to both sides. So p is now equal to a positive 3. Plug that 3 back into your problem and make sure it gives you a true statement. On number 13, they use z as a variable. They are a little dangerous to me because sometimes I like to write my 2's like this. So I always make sure that I try to put that line through the z. Remember, z is one of those that you kind of want to write a little bit different so you don't accidentally get them confused with your numbers, because sometimes z's can look like 2's. Going to get rid of my parentheses by distributing this 4 out. 4 times 3 is 12. So 4 times 3z is just 12z, minus 4 times 2 is 8, is equal to 9z minus 7. Draw a line through my equal sign. I like to move my smallest variable first. So I'm going to get rid of the 9z. I can do that by subtracting 9z. If I do it to one side, I must do it to the other. 12z minus 9z becomes 3z. Bring down my minus 8. Equals 9z minus 9z goes away. So I'm left with a negative 7. I want to get the z all by itself. The 3z is connected. So I'm going to get rid of the minus 8 first. To get rid of a minus 8, I plus 8. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 3z is equal to negative 7 plus 8 is a positive 1. 3z means 3 times z. So to undo multiplication, I divide. If I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other. 3z divided by 3 gives me 1z is equal to 1/3. Don't worry that it's a fraction. That's okay. Plug that 1/3 back in everywhere you see z and make sure you get a true statement. And it's okay to have a fraction. Number 14. 7s plus 2 equals 4, parentheses, s plus 1. If your s's start to look like 5s, you may want to write them as a cursive s. You may want to change them to x's for the problem. I'm okay with that. Okay? So, I have parentheses on this side, so I'm going to distribute that 4 out. The 7s minus 2 stays the same. 4 times s becomes 4s plus 4 times 1 becomes 4. I'm going to draw that line through my equal sign. You can start anywhere you want. I prefer to get rid of the smallest variable first, so I'm going to subtract away a 4s. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 7s minus 4s becomes 3s. My plus 2 comes down. 4s minus 4s goes away, and I'm left with a positive 4. I want to get s all by itself. So I need to get rid of the 3 and the 2. That 3 is attached to the s, so I'm just going to get rid of that plus 2 that's just hanging there. So I get rid of a plus 2 by subtracting 2. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 3s, 2 minus 2 goes away. 4 minus 2 becomes 2. I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to get s by itself. And s is equal to 2/3. Once again, make sure you plug that number in to make sure that you have a true statement. Another key fact, don't forget, when I'm subtracting this 4s on this side, I have to subtract it from something else that has an s. Those are called like terms. Do not try to do variables and numbers together, or else we can do what's inside the parentheses. Always keep your letters together, always keep your numbers together. Number 15. Sorry, I'm kind of going a little bit quick here at the end, but I got to get to that junior high volleyball game. Go Wildcats! Number 15. I have parentheses on the first side, so I'm going to distribute to get rid of them. 6 times k becomes 6k. Bring down my plus sign. 6 times 1 is just 6. Equals 2k plus 7. I didn't have to get rid of anything over there. Get rid of my smaller variable first by subtracting away a 2k. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 6k minus 2k is 4k. My plus 6 comes down. These 2k's went away, and so I'm left with a 7. Getting this k by itself, I'm going to get rid of the 6 first. Since it's a plus 6, I subtract 6. Leaves me with 4k is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 4. And I find that k is equal to 1/4. Plug it in. Number 16. We're just cranking right along. Who's excited about making 100 tomorrow on this homework just because we checked out the YouTube channel? Whoop, whoop. Don't forget about your comment. 16 says 6 parentheses n minus 1 equals 2 parentheses n plus 1. Oh, double whammy. Parentheses on both sides. Just distribute out to begin with. 6 times n becomes 6n. Bring down my minus sign. 6 times 1 is 6 equals 2n plus 2 times 1 is 2. Drop that line through my equal sign. Get rid of the baby 2n first. Smaller than that 6n. 6n minus 2n is 4n. Minus 6 equals 2. Got to add a 6 to both sides. Try to get that n all by itself. Leaves me with a 4n equals 8. Divide both sides by 4. Leaves me that lone n. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So n is equal to 2. Make sure you go back and plug it in. Number 17. Here comes those dreaded fractions again. Don't let them freak you out. Number 17 says 1/4 y minus 3 equals 5 minus 2y. Well, I don't have any parentheses on this, so I can just get started. Just drop that line through my equal sign. I have 1/4 y, and I have a negative 2y. Negative 2 is smaller than 1/4. So I'm just going to add a 2y to both sides. Don't forget, you can start anywhere you want. I just like to get rid of those little variables first, so that way I don't have to deal with negatives as often. 2 plus 1/4 is just 2 and 1/4 y. Minus 3 equals 5. Now, the minus 2y goes away. And I will let you know that in equations, especially using your calculator, it is so much easier to loop this into an improper fraction. It's okay. So 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is 9. So I'm going to rewrite this as 9/4y minus 3 equals 5. Okay? Now I'm just going to add that 3 to both sides. That gives me 9/4y is equal to 8. I'm going to divide both of those sides by 9/4. If you're doing it by hand, remember you can't divide by fractions. Instead, we multiply by the reciprocal. But we have those nice handy-dandy little calculators that'll do 8 divided by 9/4 for us. And we get 32/9. I know what you're saying. 32/9 is a crazy fraction, Coach. That can't be the right answer. Plug it in and check, and you find out that it is the correct answer. Do not let the look of a problem make you think you're wrong when you know what you're doing. You can leave it as an improper fraction. That's okay. Okay? And lastly, number 18. Dun, 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 dun. Number 18. One more little fraction left. 2/3, parentheses, 3q plus 6 equals 8. Distribute that to 2/3 out. 2/3 times 3q. I'm going to have to go over here and do a little bit of old math. So that just leaves me with 2. So I say 2q plus, when I do 2/3 times 6, sorry I don't have one of those handy dandy calculators over here with me, I get 4 equals 8. Well, hey, now we have one of these easy breezy problems. Drop that line through my equal sign. Get this q by itself by subtracting a 4 away first. 2q is equal to 4. Divide both sides by 2. And q is equal to 2. That's all she wrote.